Okay, now let's look at the basic principles of writing an effective M&D report. And I want to make this very clear to everyone. When I say M&D report, please always remember that there's no such thing as an M&E report. All right? And the reason being is the M&E. The word M&E has two activities. You've got the monitoring, you've got the evaluation. So these two can't exist simultaneously. Okay, so we just use M&D report because we're talking about two reports, and you usually just have to apply the same principles, basic principles of report writing. But please get it clear that we're just there are two reports in one. Okay. So now let's go step by step. So let's look at the principles. So the first one is when you're writing a report, you need to establish what the purpose is. Before you write any report, make sure you establish what the purpose of this report is. What do I mean? Well, like I mentioned at the onset of this slide, let's talk about a monitoring report. If you're writing a monitoring report, you know the purpose is to report on activities that were implemented and whether the target was achieved. So that's what the monitoring report aims to achieve. But if you look at an evaluation report, it reports on the overall results achieved. Did the program achieve the results it intended to achieve? So that is where now you talk about issues to do with how effective was the program? How efficient was it? Is it sustainable? Did it register the impact we wanted to see? Was it relevant? Those are the issues. So the reason why you sit down to decide on these aspects is because it will give you an idea of also what indicators to report on. Remember that in most cases, when you're writing a monitoring report, the indicators you're reporting on are the lower level ones, the outputs, the activities. But when it comes to the evaluation report, emphasis is on the higher level results. Now, another principle is whenever you're doing any report, it must be based on facts. I know this sounds very simple, but when you're reading, when you read some of the reports that are out there, you get to understand that sometimes we tend to just write stuff, but without backing it with data. Even the decisions that management make, have you noticed that sometimes their decisions are not even based on any data? They are just making decisions, and then you sit down and question, where is this decision coming from? The report did not bring this out. And this is my appeal. If you are watching this as a manager, if you are watching this as a director, or even a CEO, please understand the purpose of these reports. When a report is generated to your office, you should be able to act on it and not just let it gather dust in your office. So essentially, decision making requires first that you get the facts correctly. Don't rely on rumors. Don't rely on people just giving their own opinion. Of course, you may have reliable sources, but make sure that those sources are legit. Another issue that I want to talk about is how you organize the report. I'm one person who believes that the monitoring report doesn't need to be too detailed. Because if you have a lengthy monitoring report and then you have all these activities with strict deadlines, you may waste a lot of time just reading a long monitoring report. So I would advise that M&D officers have a short report, but yet it is rich in findings, in numbers, and also recommendations. So the way the report is organized is the standard reporting structure, which we'll talk about. There's a slide for that. But I think the point with this principle is that make sure you know exactly how you structure that report and make sure it's logical. Don't just put things for the sake of putting them in there, but let it count, let them have meaning. Another principle is that you need to be objective in your writing. Very important. Demonstrate impartiality. Imagine you go for an event somewhere, your boss tells you, go to this event, and when you come back from that event, tell me what happened. Don't write things, don't write your opinions. You will not write about your opinions, basically. You won't start saying, I think I don't like the way that person dressed at that meeting. That is irrelevant. The issue is what happened. That is what people want to know. What took place in the field? Can you back it up with evidence? Those are the issues people want to know. So don't use your opinions. That is not, your opinion matters, yes, but it's not the reason why you are writing this report. State what happened. State whether the activities were conducted. You go in the field, you find that the activity wasn't conducted. You simply state it in your report. You can state why the activity wasn't conducted, but don't say, I think it wasn't conducted because this field officer is lazy. That doesn't help anybody. So let's polish up in that area. Another issue which we need to guide ourselves is how we use our English language, or it could be other language that you are using in your own jurisdiction to write the report, basically. Avoid using academic complicated language. Avoid that because know your audience. It may not be easy for everybody to understand what you're saying. What purpose is a report if you are the only one who knows what is it's saying, but other people don't know? So make it clear. I like the way some NGOs, even the United Nations, if you've noticed the way the United Nations does its reportings. I've not read a lot of their reports, but I'll talk about one report which is called the Sustainable Development Goals Report. I'll do a video one of these days to talk about that, the findings from that report, because unfortunately they're not very promising findings, but they also give reasons why it's like that. So the language there is clear and concise. They use images to make the reader enjoy what they are reading. It adds to the experience. Another principle you need to adhere to is how you summarize your findings. So your findings should be well summarized. I talked about how important it is to sometimes use images in your report. It adds to the experience for readers. But another issue is when you're summarizing your findings, make sure that these findings are tied to the indicators. Don't put in things that people don't want. That is not why they are funding that project. There are things that they want to see, and those things are the indicators. How did these indicators perform? So make sure you do that. Another important aspect, and this, anyway, it goes both ways, both for the M&E officer and for those people who apply to be consultants to do evaluations. I'm targeting you because sometimes you have this problem. The conclusion should be tied to the objective of the whole activity. Basically, your objective is to establish whether progress was made for in the project. So in your conclusion, you should simply state, did the project achieve its intended goals or not? Don't start going in circles all over the place because it will be difficult for people to understand. The opening paragraph of the conclusion should be concise. Simply just state, did it achieve its goals, yes or no? You state, yes, the project achieved its goals. However, some goals were not achieved, and these were the following. List those goals. Then you could mention even the challenges. And then in your recommendations, you write how to resolve those challenges. You recommend what should be done to resolve those challenges. Because the minute now you have a conclusion that's going to now be just more like a copy and paste of what is in the main document, people will now have 5 to 10 minutes to read just a conclusion. I wouldn't recommend that. Yeah, so have the recommendations clearly stated. Then lastly, but not the least, is to proofread your document. Have you noticed? Let me go back to the United Nations because for obvious reasons, the UN has the best. I believe they have the best staff globally. They attract the best. So if you look at their report, for example, I have never seen a report. I know there could be those reports, but I've not seen a report that is has errors, grammatical errors. I have not seen that with the UN. Everything is maybe if there's nothing that's perfect, but if I were to grade them, 97%, 98% in terms of the way they write their reports. And that's my encouragement to you people. You can download especially their report, which is the Sustainable Development Goals report for this year. It's somewhere on the internet, and the good thing, they give this for free. Download that report. So now, what am I trying to say here is that you should proofread. If you have the money, hire someone to proofread for you. Because it's one thing to write a report, but sometimes it may be challenging to actually have the time to look for these errors because your mind is already overwhelmed. So you can get someone who can write on your behalf. I mean, proofread on your behalf. Okay, so guys, as I earlier mentioned,